Everyone, I am Gracie Amini Balentos, and today we were going to talk about the medieval literature. So, when we say medieval literature, we are referring to the written works produced in Europe and the Eastern Mediterranean during the Middle Ages or the medieval period. So, this period roughly spanned from the 5th to 15th centuries, a time of significant historical and cultural change. So, this means we'll encounter works from various culture, languages, and also the traditions, offering a rich tapestry of perspective on the period, which is the medieval period. So the literature we'll be studying today comes from the Middle Ages. So this Middle Ages means the medieval period, no? Just clarification. A period extending from roughly AD 300 to 1500 or 1500. So it roughly last for almost 1,200 years period. So this lengthy time frame allows us to trace the evolution of literary styles and themes from the early medieval period and its emphasis on the religious text to the later medieval period with its diverse range of genres, including the romances, the lyric poetry, and the dramatic works. So the literature reflects the changing social, political, and the religious landscape of the time. So now let's talk about the medieval literature time period. But instead of getting dig deeper in dates, let's think of it like this. No, so imagine three different streams. So when we say streams, it means a body of running water, no, flowing together to make a big river. So each streams represent a different kind of writing, and they all contribute to the richness of the medieval literature. So first we have the what do you call this? The first stream, which is the medieval Greek. So this AD is 300 onwards. No, this medieval Greek, this which is the first stream. So this stream starts in the East and the Byzantine Empire, which is the Eastern Roman Empire. So think of it as the longest flowing stream. So mao siya ang pinaka-taas nga flowing stream. So they continue to write in Greek, keeping alive many traditions of ancient Greece. No, they wrote religious texts, histories, and the philosophical works. Think of it like a strong, very, very strong, steady current carrying the legacy of the past. Let's just, for example, the writings of John Chrysostomo, which is a highly influential theologian. So next stream is the medieval Latin, which is from 476 AD onwards. So this stream starts in the West. So after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, Latin was the language of the church and, of course, the use of scholars, no, across the Europe. So many important religious texts like the Bible and scholarly works were written in Latin. So think of this stream as the powerful, no, think of this as a powerful, as a central current carrying the weight of the religious and intellectual thought. So for example, the work of what do you call this, the work of Augustine. So Augustine of Hippo, which is the major figure in Christian theology. So that's one of the example of the second stream. So next is the third stream, which is the vernacular literature from 800 AD to 1500 AD. So this newest stream, so this is the third stream, starting around the time of Charlemagne, which is the vernacular, just means the everybody language of the people. So that's vernacular, which is the French, English, German, Spanish, and etc. So this is when the stories and poems started being written and the language people actually spoke, no, their dialect. So if their dialect is English, then they're going to write a stories and a poem using that specific language or dialect. So this stream is like a fast-flowing tributary, adding its own unique, no, its own unique energy and voice to the river. For example, is one of the example of this stream or this period is the Song of Roland, which is the Old French. They use the language Old French, and also the Beowulf. It used the Old English language, and the Canterbury Tales, which they use a Middle English, if I'm not mistaken, the Canterbury Tales use the Middle English language at that time period, and that ends with our period of the medieval literature. Now, let's proceed to the how Christianity shaped medieval literature. So it's not just about religious stories; it's about how Christian beliefs influence how stories were told and what stories were told. No, okay. Now first, let's talk about the systematic approach. So Christianity introduced a structured view of life, literature, and the religion derived from early church fathers. Now, Christianity provided a clear framework, no, it provided a clear framework for understanding life. Think of it as a set of instruction or a blueprint or kind of hint. Early church leaders like St. Augustine and St. Jerome helped define this framework, which is the systematic approach, interpreting the Bible and developing Christian doctrine. No, this framework influenced how medieval writers structured their stories and presented their ideas. No, they often used clear moral lessons and structured narratives to reinforce Christian teachings. That is the systematic approach. For example of this is the many medieval romances like Sir Gawain and the Green Knights. That is one of the example and systematic approach. And aren't just this story or this romance story of medieval is aren't just adventure stories. They explore themes of temptation, virtue, and the importance of following God's will. No, the structure of the story itself, the quest, the challenges, and the ultimate rewards mirror the Christian journey of faith. Next is the philosophical fusion. So it is the integration of Christian and the classical philosophical ideas, notably through Saint Augustine also. So medieval thinkers weren't afraid uh, to mix ideas, to mix their ideas, no? They combined Christian theology and the classical philosophy. No, ing ana sila ka mga kuan sa una. They even combined the Christian theology to classical philosophy, particularly the idea of Greek thinkers like Plato and Aristotle. St. Augustine was a master of this, no? Blending Christian faith with philosophical reasoning. So this fusion of ideas is reflected in many medieval writings, no, which explores uh, complex theological, philosophical questions. So it really gives a fusion of ideas, no. Then one of the example of this is Thomas Aquinas, a hugely influential medieval philosopher, used Aristotle's logic to build elaborate arguments supporting Christian doctrine. So his work shows how medieval thinkers integrated ancient wisdom into their Christian worldview. Next is the symbolic interpretation. So it is in nature and classical literature were viewed symbolically, with writings interpreted through an allegorical lens. And medieval writers often saw the world as a book of symbols. No, they believed that nature, classical literature, and everyday objects held deeper, often spiritual meanings. They use allegory where characters and event represent on abstract ideas to convey complex ideas. For example, the Romance of the Rose. No, it is a famous medieval poem uses the allegory of a rose to represent the pursuit of love. No, the journey to obtain the rose symbolizes the challenges and the complexities of a romantic love, but it can also be read as a metaphor for the spiritual quest. So that is one of the example. So in summary of this influence and the Christianity. So Christianity wasn't just a subject of medieval literature actually, no. It was the very foundation upon which much of it was built. So it provided a structured worldview. It encouraged a blending of philosophical ideas and promoted a symbolic way of seeing the world, no. Understanding this influence is a key to appreciating the richness and complexity of the medieval literature. Let's talk about how medieval literature was preserved even during times of great upheaval. No, imagine a world where libraries and books were easily destroyed by war and invasion. So that's what the medieval ages were like, no. But in those uncertain times, knowledge was saved thanks to the important role of the monasteries. So the monasteries, the safe havens of knowledge, which when we say monasteries, it means a house. It is a house of a person or a people under religious vows. That is monasteries. So think of a monasteries like a giant libraries and schools all rolled into one. They were places of learning and worship. No, monks dedicated to a life prayer and study recognize the importance of preserving knowledge. The monasteries like Saint Benedict's at Monte Cassino, founded in 529, became safe havens, no, for ancient texts during the turbulent periods. They copied and preserved the manuscripts, ensuring that important works from the past would not be lost. No, For example, one of the example is imagine lang ha, if all the works of ancient Greek philosopher like Plato and Aristotle had been lost or were not preserved, no? But because of the monks diligently copied those writings, they survived and influenced the later thinkers. Next is let's talk about the Latin, the language of learning, which the language of learning. Latin was the language of church and scholarship, like what I mentioned earlier. It was the common language that connected the scholars across Europe. So many classical Latin authors and works dominated medieval scholarship, including The City of God by St. Augustine. This book is a masterpiece of Christian philosophy, argued for the power and glory of God, even in the face of the fall of the Roman Empire. Uh, Ecclesiastical History of the English People by Bede. No, this work chronicled the history of England, including its conversion to Christianity. So it's a vital source for understanding early English history and culture. No? So, third is the power of copying. So, monks copied manuscript by hands. Imagine, they copied the manuscript by just using their hand. A painstaking process that required incredible skills and dedication. So, this painstaking process was crucial to preserving literature and knowledge. So, imagine the amount of time the imagine the amount of time and the effort it took to copy a large book. The effort is giving, no? It shows how much value they placed on preserving this text for future generation. No? So, in summary of this, in short, monasteries plays a vital role in preserving the literature during the Middle Ages or the medieval period. So they were safe havens for knowledge, where monks diligently copied and preserved ancient texts. Latin, the language of scholarship, helped connect scholars across Europe. So, thanks to the hard work of these monks, no, we still have access to many important works from the classical and early medieval period nowadays. Now, let's proceed to the vernacular works and the oral traditions. So, let's talk about first the power of oral tradition. No? So imagine a time before books and writing. No? Stories were told and retold, passed down from generation to generation. It's like a chain of whisper, no? From the lula of your lula, like gikan pag sa kalula-lulahan, basta kana siya. So this is called the oral tradition. So these stories often reflected the beliefs and value of a culture from its gods, heroes, and myths, no? Examples of this is the Poetic Edda. This is one of the example. It is a collection of Norse myth and poems filled with tales of gods like Odin and Thor and epic battles between the heroes. So this was passed down orally, no, for centuries during being written, before being written. So before ni siya nasulat into literary works, uh, it been oral tradition sa una, no, ginastorya lang ni siya, ginaretold sa generation ngaron, iretold na po sa next generation until the time comes nga gisulat na gid siya, it is written down. So another example is the Beowulf. uh, Actually this Beowulf is just a oral tradition story, no, it is being told from this generation to another generation. So this epic poem tells the story of a brave warrior, diba, who defeats monster and protects his people. It reflects the value of courage, loyalty, and heroism prevalent in the Anglo-Saxon, di ba? It is an Anglo-Saxon culture. So the Song of Hildebrand is also one of the examples. This epic poem from the Germanic tradition tells the story of a father and the son who are forced to fight against each other, di ba? If you're familiar with this, it explored the themes of loyalty also, duty, and the complexities of family relationships. Next is the recording the past. When Christianity arrived in Europe, it didn't erase these ancient stories, no? Instead, scribes, which is the people who could write, began recording this oral tradition. So, they preserve them from posterity. These stories were often reinterpreted through a Christian lens, blending pagan elements like with Christian beliefs. So, example of this is the also the Beowulf. This is one of the example. While Beowulf tells a story to a hero defeating monster, it also incorporates Christian themes. No, Beowulf is portrayed as the righteous warrior who fight for God's glory. This fusion reflects the blending of pagan and Christian elements in medieval culture. Next is the legacy of oral tradition. Let's talk about the legacy of oral tradition this time. So, this early oral tradition, even as they were written down, no, nasulat na sila and reinterpret na, left a lasting impact on the medieval literature. So they provided a rich source of themes, characters, and storytelling techniques that continued to be used in later works. So, for example, is the Canterbury Tales. Now, it is discussed by I think Mr. Jason when we was first semester. It is by Chaucer. So this collection of stories draws on both Christian and pagan themes, reflecting the diverse influences that shape medieval culture. No, Chaucer characters like the wife of a bat and the pardoners are full wit, wisdom, and a touch of the pagan spirit of the past. So, in conclusion of this, the oral tradition were a vital part of the medieval culture, right? So, these stories passed down through generation to generation reflected the beliefs and values of time. As scribes began to record these stories, they blended pagan elements with Christian thoughts, no? Creating a unique and enduring literary tradition. uh, we're going to talk about the exciting world of the medieval vernacular literature. So, remember those everyday language we mentioned, or I mentioned earlier, like the French, English, and the German. So, well, those languages started to be used for writing stories and poems, and that's where we find some really interesting genres. So, first genre is the romance. So, it is all about adventure, love, and quest. With this, I think of a romance as a what do you call this, a medieval action adventure movie. It's filled with knights, battles, quests, and of course love. But these romances aren't just about fighting and wooing. No, they often combine elements from classical literature like Greek myth with Christian ideas. They combine that classical literature of Greek myth and Christian ideas. Also, they explore the theme of chivalry, loyalty, and the importance of spiritual journey. So, for example of that is the Song of Roland. It is a classical medieval romance. It tells the story of a brave knight who fight for his king and his fate. It's full of action, adventure, and a strong sense of honor. No? So next is the courtly love lyric and the art of idealized love. So imagine a love poem. I mean, written in a very specific, almost a formal style. That's a courtly love lyric. No, it's all about expressing love in a very idealized way. Think of it as a romantic song, but with a lot of focus on beauty, elegance, and pain of unrequited love. So this style of poetry is originated in southern and northern France and spread across the Europe. And one of the example of that is the Romance of the Rose. Are you familiar with this? So this poem, actually written in Middle French, no, explored the complexities of love through the allegory of a rose. No, gigamit niya ang rose as allegory, or it's also pwede po siya sa pang metaphor. So so this story is, or this poem is a beautiful and often humorous work that reflects the courtly love tradition, the song of the troubadours. So these were poems and songs written by traveling poets in southern France. They celebrated courtly love, chivalry, and the beauty of nature. So, if you're going to ask, why are we talking about this genre? Why are we talking about this different type of genre in this medieval literature? Why are this genre important? So the answer is this genre are important because they reflect the values, beliefs, and the social structure of medieval society. They show us how people thought about love, honor, and adventure. So they also give us a glimpse into the lives of the knights, the ladies, and the poets and the medieval Europe. So that's why it's very important to talk about the different genre and the medieval literature. Now, let's also tackle the development of the medieval drama. So imagine a church service, but instead of just listening to the story of Christmas, we're actually seeing it unfold right before your eyes. So that's the quote. Imagine a church service, but instead of just listening to the story of Christmas, you're actually seeing it unfold right before your eyes. So this part explains how medieval drama emerged from religious ceremonies like those for Easter or Christmas. Next is this early performance were more like elaborate rituals using gestures, meme, and simple dialogue. It was more about showing than telling, no? This describes the nature of these early performances, emphasizing the use of physical expression and simply storytelling techniques. So think of it like a play without words. The actor would use their bodies and facial expressions only to tell the stories. This further clarifies the nature of these early performances, emphasizing their reliance on physical expression. So one of the one of the earliest known medieval drama is called the Quim Quirites or the Womb Sikyi, no? Which was performed during Easter. It is a simple scene about the woman who went to the tomb and their encounter with the angel who announced the resurrection of Christ, di ba? They would act out this scene showing the woman's surprise and the angel's message. So this example illustrates the nature of these early performances, showcasing how they brought biblical stories to life. So next is the evolution. So the evolution of the medieval drama. So over time, these religious performances no started to move beyond the church walls. They were staged in public spaces like town squares and became more elaborate. So this describes the move from church sittings to public spaces. No, ingana na ka, ingana na ang pag-evolve nila. So sa una kay sa church lang siya gina-perform, but now it is performed in the public space, in the public na. So they incorporated more dialogue, music, and even costumes. They use that, no? This highlights the increasing complexity of these performances. So it wasn't just about religious stories anymore, no? It is not just about religious stories anymore. It started to reflect the lives and the concern of an ordinary people. So this explains the shift toward more secular themes, reflecting and evolving interest of the audience. Since we already talked about the plays and medieval drama, here are the types of plays, no? So in medieval drama wasn't just one thing. It was a mix of different types of plays, each with its own style and purpose. So now let's look at the three main types of the plays. So first is the mystery plays. It is a Bible stories on stage, no? When we say mystery play, it is a Bible story on stage. These plays brought the Bible to life. They showed scenes from the Bible, from creation to the last judgment, no? Imagine seeing the story of Noah's Ark acted out with a giant ark and all the animals, or the story of Jesus' life. From his birth to his crucifixion. So this play were often performed in cycles siya. So a series of plays telling the whole Bible story. For example, a mystery play might show the Tower of Babel with people trying to build a tower to reach heaven, di ba? And God confusing their languages. So that is one of the example. Next play is the miracle play. It is Saint Amazing Lives. No, these plays were all about the lives of the saints, and the miracles they performed. They were like superhero this in the story, no? But with the saint, instead of superheroes, these plays often had amazing special effect, showing a miraculous healing, angel appearing, or demons being defeated, no? One of the examples of that is a miracle play might show Saint George slaying a dragon, or a saint miraculously healing a sick person. So that is one of the example of miracle play. Next is the morality play. It is a lesson for life. So this play weren't about specific stories, no? They were about teaching people how to live good lives. They use characters that represented things like good deeds, bad habits, and the death to show the choices we make and their what you call this consequences. So example of this is the Every Man is a famous morality play. So this Every Man is what I've said earlier, a famous morality play. It's about a man who is visited by death and has to account for how he lives his life. It teaches us about the importance of doing good deeds and preparing for death. So mystery plays were like Bible movies, no? Miracle plays were like superhero stories about saint, and morality plays were like life lesson acted out on stage. So they all help to teach and entertain people in the Middle Ages or in the medieval period. Next is the characteristics. So medieval plays, even those with serious religious themes, often included humor and farcical elements to keep audiences engaged and make the stories more relatable. So think of it as in adding funny sidekicks to a serious story, no? Magbutang na sila og mga like katawanan just to entertain and make the audience relate to the story. It makes the message more memorable and easier to understand also. So comic characters, world play, and the slapsticks were common techniques and different types of plays and medieval drama. Now let's discuss also the fascinating transition from medieval period to the next topic, which is the Renaissance. So focusing on the key figures and the literary shift that occurred, it wasn't a sudden change, no, but a gradual evolution, and understanding the writers of this transitional period is key. First, let's acknowledge a significant fact about medieval literature. A huge amount of it is anonymous. We don't know who wrote many of the plays, poems, and stories that survived from this time. No, na mga works sa medieval period nga hangtod karon wa ta kabalo kinsay nagsulat ana, di ba? So this anonymity makes dating these works difficult. Kay wala man ta kabalo kung kinsay nagsulat, and lisod pud siya iingon nga this kind of writing is from this period, no? So this work is difficult, right? In dating. So relying heavily on clues from language and style lang yun ang nahimuan ni, like mayon nga kani siya from medieval because from the clue of the used language and style. So it's like piecing together a puzzle with many missing pieces. Nga na siya kalisod. So this lack of authorship is a characteristic of the time, reflecting the collaborative nature of much of the writing and the focus on the message rather than the individual author. So however, towards the end of the medieval period, some truly influential authors emerged, no, whose works are still studied and celebrated today. So these writers are crucial because their works bridges the medieval and Renaissance period. So kanilang work is nag-bridge sa gap between medieval period ang to niambak sa Renaissance period. So they are the architects of this transition. So let's examine some key figures. So first, anonymous works, the vast of majority of medieval literature is the anonymous. We don't know the author of many surviving works, making dating and analyzing them challenging, di ba? Like what I've said earlier, lisod siya. For example, many ballads and folk tales were passed down orally for generations, like oral tradition, di ba? Before being written down. So it is often with variation and addition by different storytellers. So this makes tracing authorship and establishing a precise date of origin extremely difficult. So influential authors or several significant authors emerged towards the end of the medieval period whose work incorporated both medieval and Renaissance elements. First of that is Dante Alighieri. His Divine Comedy is a prime example. So that is one of the example of the transition work of Dante Alighieri. So next is Geoffrey Chaucer. The Canterbury Tales showcase this transition perfectly. Next is Francesco Petrarch. Considered the father of humanism, Petrarch actively sought and studied a classical text. And another one is Giovanni Boccaccio. The Cameron, a collection of short stories set during the Black Death, blends medieval storytelling conventional with a Renaissance interest in human nature and realistic details. So next is the transitional nature from medieval to Renaissance. So the work of these authors bridges the uh, the medieval and the Renaissance period, no, showcasing a shift in literary focus and style. Their writings often combined medieval themes and structure with Renaissance ideals like humanism, realism, and individualism. So this blending of style marks a crucial turning point in literary history. So in conclusion, the transition from the medieval to the Renaissance wasn't abrupt, no? Dili siya dinalian. These authors, along with many anonymous voices of the medieval period helped shape this evolution. So blending old and new style and themes to create a rich and complex literary landscape. So that's all about the medieval literature. Before I officially end my discussion, let me give you this quote or an anonymous quote which says that the medieval ages may be long past, but the stories they told continue to speak to us. So that's all my discussion about the medieval literature. I hope you learned something, and God bless us all.